everyone. Hello, everyone. I just want to start by welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys for being here with us today. I'm going to go ahead and start this off by introducing our panelists. We're still currently waiting for a panelist, but he'll be here shortly. We have Ms. Nora Vicks. We have Stephen Kinney. We have Gil Jasmine. And Jaren Johnson. Thank you all for being here with us today. First, start this event off, which is envisioning a better future, a conversation about Black health and wellness. And to give you guys an overview of what the event actually is, I'm gonna go ahead, I prepared a statement for you guys. When you think about Black health and wellness, what comes to mind? This has been the question that has honestly bothered me for quite some time now. On the surface, it seems like a question you should be able to quickly answer and go about your day. But boy, was I wrong. I've done some personal research on this, and as well, I have found some things referred to me to help me expand my knowledge on the subject. And I also have those articles with me as well here today, if you guys want to further talk about that, and have found it is much deeper than that. Black health and wellness is about understanding why our grandparents and parents, despite having medical issues, refuses to go to a doctor to help them heal their bodies. At first, I thought this was just a silly superstition in the Black community, but after reading into it, how can I blame them? You see, they were raised in an America that did not want Blacks and whites to even be in the same medical institution during the Jim Crow era. Black medical institutions were often understaffed, underfunded, or non-existent. This sad reality gave credence to the saying, when white folks catch a cold, Black folks get pneumonia. It was only recently in the 20th century when Black America was given a chance at institutional health care. It was only when the US government threatened to withhold Medicare payments to white-only medical institutions that almost overnight, hospitals were desegregated. The year was 1964, not even 60 years ago. But this is only half the battle, as we struggle in the Black community with seeking mental help as well. As we sit here today, may I ask this same haunting question to my panelists. When you think about Black health and wellness, what comes to mind?
When I think about Black health and wellness, a lot of things come to mind. I think about my own experiences in my own community, my own environment, community environment, as well as household environment. I think of lack of resources, and then I start to think about what we need to do to be able to bridge the gap. So thinking about a cultural well-being, safe space for those in our community. I kind of base off my own experience and those around me and take from that information, try to figure out what are we lacking, what do we need. So it's more so of a solution to the problem.
And I also think that when you think about wellness, you have to think about holistically, like the body, the mind, the soul, how all that has to be aligned in order to be a whole person. If you're lacking in one area, then it's going to show, and it's going to show like to everyone else out there. So it's important that we go to the doctor, take our medication, don't self-medicate, listen to what the doctors say, and that's really important.
What I'll add to that is that, there is a state of wellness that we all have to achieve, mind, body, and spirit, taking a holistic approach. I would also say that from a global or universal perspective as the Black community, we should all have not only an idea of what Black health and wellness means to the community, but you should also have an idea of what Black health and wellness means for you individually, because sometimes the community can face challenges, but you also may have your own unique specific challenges. So don't think of it just as we as a community, but we as a community, and what do I personally need as well. So take a holistic approach, from a community perspective as well as an individual perspective, because that's going to ultimately make you the best person and the best version of yourself.
I just want to take this time to introduce our panelists, Jaron Johnson. Just so you guys could get his view on this question. When you think of Black health and wellness, what comes to mind?
Well, hello everyone. I'm Jaron Johnson, Fitness and Wellness Coordinator here at Nichols. And when I hear that question, Black health and wellness to me is to be able to live life healthy and make sure that you're getting your daily nutrients, keep those vital nutrients key in your life. I know a lot of times in the Black community, a lot of people, we're away from eating healthy, just a lot of healthy aspects that we need that may seem to get overshadowed by culture, or it's new to us, so specifically for me, I like to push health and wellness because I know that my people need it, considering what we're at risk for. Black people lead in a lot of risk factors like hypertension, and it's a lot of different health factors that we kind of overlook. So for me, I just like to make sure health and wellness is at the forefront of what we need to focus on in the Black community. So.
Alrighty, all right. So on to our next question. Do you believe health and fitness is taken seriously in the Black community?
Could you repeat?
The question is, do you believe health and fitness is taken seriously in the Black community?
I do believe health and fitness is taken seriously. At least a lot of people in the Black community, they want to know what it's about, because it's a lot of times we feel like we don't have access to a lot of that stuff because it hasn't always been there. Like I said, a lot of this is new for people in the Black community. They've never, most people get into this if they play a sport. If you're not playing a sport, a lot of times it's just you live your life. So I do feel like it's important when people get older, they understand what they're up against, and a lot of times I feel like we don't think we have access to people who can really help us, or people feel like it's too hard. But like I said, every day I'm trying to help anybody the best way I can. If it's something like telling them to eat an apple because it's loaded with nutrients, any way I can help push fitness and wellness, I like to push that, because a lot of people think that it's too hard, or they don't have. It's a lot of excuses. I feel like people make time for what they want to make time for, but they complain about their own body. And if it's something like going to get the next pair of shoes to come out, you'll see a line of Black people getting a pair of shoes to come out. But if it's up and coming Black trainer and he says, I'm hosting a free group exercise class this weekend, he won't have that same amount of people, So just getting people to know the importance of fitness and wellness is surely important in the Black community, because little things like that matter and it makes a difference.
So I like to chime in on that. I think in the past, as far as like the health and fitness, it wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't as popular. So I think in the past years with social media, a lot of the actors and actresses and just artists in general are utilizing their platforms to put that information out now. So like if you look at TikTok and YouTube, especially a lot of the Gen Gs and the millenniums, they are putting that information out there more often. At one time, we didn't have what technology has today. We didn't have those resources and that information out there. It wasn't in our households either. So some of the information, like how you say, like we learn behaviors. If I'm in a household where this information is not there and we don't have that resources there, then I won't gather. I won't know about working out and exercise. I know that with my mom, I worked out with her when I was younger on Saturdays because that's something she did. You know, even if we didn't have the technology then. So now more so, the black people in the black community, we are taking it more serious because the information is out there. It's accessible to one another. So I think if we continue to provide information and resources and find ways, again, to bridge that gap in places that we feel safe and comfortable, then we will take more interest in the health and fitness in our community.
And if I can add something to that, because the question was, asking about do we take it seriously? I think that society as a whole, we place a seriousness on what's important to us. And oftentimes, health and wellness, sports and fitness, if you are an athlete, you see that there's a seriousness behind me making sure I'm staying conditioned and in shape. If you are, someone that is going to be in a field or profession that requires physical activity, then you may have a greater focus upon it. But overall, as a community, too often we're looking at the fads of what's in right now. And that lacks seriousness, Everybody makes a New Year's resolution. Well, you can't make a New Year's resolution because I want to get healthy and fitness because I want to have a hot boy summer or a hot girl summer. You have to think about, but that's the truth. You hear that all the time. You have to think about the just journey and the process of what health and fitness is. And if you are a 40-year-old trying to have a hot boy summer or a hot girl summer, you got to think about the 40 years that you've gotten to this point. So if you're going to take it seriously, it's not just about the here and now and instant gratification of if I do this, can I get this? But how do I seriously commit to something to say that this is going to be a change and a lifestyle that I'm going to live not only from today, but for the rest of the time?
Yeah, and I also think that we should take in consideration of family history. So if you have a history of cholesterol, high blood pressure, getting those things checked so okay, I have a family history of this, so make sure you're eating right, make sure you're eating right, you exercise, you do all those things so you're not at risk of getting those things.
So another thing to chime in on what he just said, when you're up against genetics, you can't beat genetics. You have to work around it because, if you have a history of high blood pressure, it's 9 times out of 10 you're gonna have high blood pressure. But if you're staying active, you're constantly focusing on your diet, just things that are overlooked. If you put those things first, you can still live a long, healthy life. I know my family, on my dad's side, there's a history of high blood pressure, and my dad didn't let that stop him. Every morning for at least 20 to 30 years, my dad would walk 10 miles outside. The only thing that was stopping was the rain, and if it rained, he's going to the YMCA. But every day he's gonna walk. He just put his diet first, and anybody can make that simple change. I think now, because everything is accessible to us and we have so much social media and things to help, regardless, I think this is a time for Black people to reclaim their health and help each other. We have access to so much, and we can help each other, and I feel like this time now is just the best time for Black people to reclaim their health. So.
Right. Okay, well, look, I have a quick side question. As you can tell, I'm a pretty hefty guy, I love to eat my food. So I do have a question for Jerry, and is there a way that you could eat what you want but still work it out, or is that unrealistic?
It's very realistic. The main thing is balance. Balance in your diet. A lot of people feel like dieting is hard because they can't eat what they want to, or they have to give up so much or it's too hard. But I feel like balance is it's the only word to say. A lot of times people ask me, because I meal prep. I actually meal prep every single day, 7 days a week. I meal prep. I cook. I used to cook my meals 5 days a week. Now I do 3 days. I'll cook for 3 days, and then I'll cook for 3 more days. But what I like to tell people is to chase habits, chase good habits instead of results. So I got into the habit of meal prepping. I remember I was in college in 2018. I had to go to the doctor. I got my blood pressure taken. I was trying to get a physical for intramural sports, and I got my blood pressure taken. It was like extremely high, and so they like sent me to the hospital because they said it was like really high. And not the hospital, the doctor, but when I got to the doctor told me my arm was just too big for the cuff, but he ended up taking my blood pressure, and it was still a little elevated. So I don't know what that, just to hear that I had an elevated blood pressure, I went and threw everything out my house, every snack, everything, bread, everything got thrown out, and I went to the local grocery store. I spent like $230 on the cleanest things I could find to eat. Wheat bread, bagels. I didn't know nothing. I was just, if it looked healthy, I bought it. And that's how I kickstart my health journey, and I never look back. It's just having willpower, determination, and to know where you want to go. If you really want to see results, you just have to dedicate yourself to that process and have balance. I can meal prep and work out, and then I can still go get some mozzarella sticks and a cheesecake, because I love cheesecake and mozzarella sticks.
Thank you for that. I enjoyed that talk.
Can I chime in on that real quick? So I'm listening to your experience, and a lot of, like you say, your life journey, your lifestyle journey, your health journey, it's more than just thinking about it being a diet. So it's a mental concept. The idea that mentally I'm thinking about, if I am on a diet, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to continue that diet. But mentally, if I'm thinking I'm changing my lifestyle into eating healthy and looking at the whole pros concept of it, then I may be consistent with that type of lifestyle. So like how you had that scare, you immediately mentally thought about the what ifs and went into a full drive mode of I got to eat healthy. I had that scare too. And the same thing, once you have that idea of, oh my God, like, the what ifs, what could happen, or, the people that's in place, like I have kids, so it's like, if I'm not here for them, I need to mentally start thinking how I can change the concept of my lifestyle and start to, eat better and live a more healthier lifestyle. So yeah.
I think when people hear the word diet, it has like
a negative concept.
Yes, it's negative. So
Immediate turn off.
Say that again?
It's an immediate turn off.
Yes. So a lot of times the word diet gets used out of context. When people hear diet, they think it's everlasting, like it's forever. The thing about a diet is meant to be for a period of time. Mm-hmm. That's why they have so many diets. Literally, you go pescatarian, vegetarian, keto. My brother tried to do a keto diet for 6 months when it was only meant to be like 1 month, and he was just starving himself, and I had to tell him it's short term. So a lot of times diet is short term, but to make a healthy lifestyle is forever. There's no, when you're having a healthy lifestyle, you eat how you want to eat, but you eat clean. You have balanced meals, majority of all of your meals, but you can still have your indulgences. So, you can still have that piece of candy, piece of cake, or pizza. Because I like pizza too. I like to order pizza.
Me too.
And chicken wings.
Making me hungry.
But all in all, like, I don't know, I did a lot of bodybuilding, so meal prepping is like at the forefront of everything I do. So a lot of times when I go out with we're gonna staff lunch. We'll go to the caf and they get to eat whatever, and I have 2 plates of salads right in front of me.
The good thing is our cafeteria have lots of diverse options there. So you can choose either one or the other, and you can have a nice balance, proportion size of healthy food versus, pizza.
Nice. All right, so I'm really itching to get to this question and really interested to hear what you guys have to say. What are some norms in the Black community that you would like to see broken?
I'll start that one off. I think one of the things for me that I would like to see broken is too often we rely upon misinformation based upon what we hear. Where somebody mentioned it earlier that my grandmother said this, or my brother, my cousin said that. Sometimes we got to do our own research to figure out how does this impact me. The difficulty with saying that is the fact that historically a lot of traditions and a lot of things within families and cultures have been passed down through oral traditions. You talk about the slaves and their spirituals. Those all things were taught orally. So we are accustomed to being taught based upon what we heard from other individuals. When it comes to health and wellness, too often we rely upon, well, my grandmother doesn't go to the doctor because of this, so I'm not going to go to the doctor. Well, we're not back when your grandmother or your great-grandfather was, an adolescent, a teenager, a young adult. So you have to look at the research here today and now and figure out how does this impact me? How can I take hold and utilize the resources and the tools available to me, as opposed to just solely depending upon what those that came before us said their experience was. We still hear people talking about the Tuskegee Airmen. Yes, we know that story and we know that experience, but we can't allow that to continue to hold fear over our lives that we're not going to go to a doctor because of what happened 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So sometimes we have to break those norms of just using those oral traditions and oral stories that we heard and do research and figure out how do I make a best decision for me that's based upon informed research of today.
Well, I agree with all the information you just stated in regards to those norms. It sounds like a lot of just different generational cycles that need to be broken, and that we are sometimes creating those barriers within ourselves. Just thinking about just in general, so like the stigma again in regards to the mental industry, and just like what he's talking about. Also like in regards to me being a Black woman, the superwoman mentality, like how that was taught, and as well as just in general with how in our community, and I don't know if this is in general, but I know from my own experience how we are teaching our African American sons and men not to be able to express themselves emotionally. Having them look at that as if it's a sign of weakness, which becomes a major issue as they grow older into, from adolescence and moving forth into their adulthood in their relationships and so forth on. So I think that's a lot of different norms within our community that I would like to see broken, but the stigma just in general is one major one for me.
And I want to add on to what Ms. Honora said about, there's always this stigma in the Black community of like you have to be strong, and then when you're always deemed a strong individual, then no one is going to, when you're in crisis, no one's going to like check in on you because you're always deem yourself as being that strong person. So it can be very exhausting being that strong person because no one is a strength for you, but you're a strength for everyone else. So that can be very exhausting and be very tiring, and it can feel like you're very much so alone and like no one's there for you. So I think that's one big stigma that needs to be broken.
If I can chime in real quick into something that Gail just said. There was a recent story relatively this week about the former Miss USA that, committed suicide. And at the end of that broadcast, either last night or the night before, the reporter said, check in on your strong friends, because you never know who's dealing with what. And I think oftentimes, we have to put on these images of being a strong person, and then when something happens that we know what's going on, but others around us don't know what's going on because they have this perception that, we can just conquer the world. So most often what happens is people go through things by themselves because people think you just had it all together and you're strong by yourself. So that just really resonated with me when they said this. Like, you know what, take a moment to check in on your strong friends, because you never know who just needs that phone call of encouragement, of uplifting, because they may be having just a horrible day.
To chime in on that, about the Miss USA, she was actually Miss North Carolina. She lived in the same city as me. I'm from North Carolina, and a lot of people back home, they knew her, and just being in that city where she was at, our city back at home, it was, that area was predominantly black, but people saw her as like on a pedestal, so everyone thought that she lived a great life. She did events at my college. Every time she would come, it was smiles, and you never would have thought that 4 years later she would take her own life, and it's really sad. But I had a conversation with some students here on why they felt that they couldn't reach out or talk to not even their own friends or family, and pretty much the responses that I got was that their friends don't take what they take seriously. They don't think of it the same, so they feel like they have to keep it away from them, or it's more serious, and if their friends laugh or judge them, or if they go and tell another friend, but they only wanted it to be between them. And then a lot of others just stated that, they want to keep it in because they don't feel like people take, their problem seriously, or it won't matter as much to that person. And, I don't think it should be like that. I feel like you should always have an outlet in someone, whether you're the strong friend or not, and it's always great to just periodically check on your people, because more times than none, people who have a lot on their plate, they're very successful, those are the main ones who are probably drowning in everything and don't have that outlet because they do so much other stuff. So, just to periodically check on everyone is always, major.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess this really goes into another question that I do have. Do you guys believe that we are promoting mental health effectively in the black community? And if not, what can we do as a community to change that?
Well, I think the first thing for me is to normalize the conversation about mental health. And I say that from experience, and some of you know this story and some of you may not. But in 2019, my 20-year-old nephew came home and took his own life because he had been away at college and he was dealing with so many things that he thought, going back to what Honora said, that he had to put on this image of being a strong, black man, that he couldn't show emotion, he couldn't express weakness. And what resulted in that was, he came home from school, went to break, and just felt as though the weight of the world was on his shoulders, and he took his own life. And immediately when people ask, because once somebody passes away 20 years old, like, what happened? For a while, the family wouldn't even say suicide. And I'm like, no, we have to, I don't want to say normalize it, but we have to be candid and open and transparent about this, because you never know who having that conversation with is going to encourage someone else not to do the same thing. That for me has been a driving force since that point in time. If Farron somewhere around here, I remember coming back in the spring of 2020, I was like, Farron, I need to be at the First Crown meeting, because we have to have a conversation. Again, I'm not trying to make it a norm, but we have to not have a stigma around saying the word suicide. We have to make sure that we're talking about mental health, because it's really important. You can exercise and condition your body. You can eat right. You can do a lot of things, but if you're not conditioning your mind, some of that's going to be in vain. So we have to make sure that we're not casting a shadow over it because we don't want, the perception that this happened to my family. No, we have to make sure that we're having those conversations, being very transparent and candid, because you never know who that conversation is going to touch and who that conversation is going to reach, and somebody else may be prevented from doing that based upon what you share with them.
So do you feel that we are at least progressively getting towards that point of having that normal conversation?
I think we are progressing, but we're not progressing as fast as we should have. If you look at the research today, African American men have the leading rate of suicide in all of the country, and it is exponentially higher than other demographics. So while there is progress being made, and you see the out of darkness walks that have happened, that continue to happen over the past few years, we're not progressing where we need to be, especially in the Black community, because there is so much stigma around it. So we continue, just the outreach and continuing the conversation each and every day is how we're going to continue to break down the stigma and break down the barriers for individuals in our community as well as in other communities to talk about mental health.
Well, you pretty much said a mouthful, but I completely agree with everything you're saying about the stigma in the Black community. There's so much more to that. And like it dates back to slavery time where we were dealt to suppress all these emotions and things that we experienced, the trauma, and having to push through, through the pain, and it just continued. It was a cycle. And so, like you said, adaptive behaviors, the things that we are learning today over and over again, like although we have progressed, there's still a limit of conversations that are happening, especially amongst Black men. I'm gonna be very honest. In regards to the women in the Black community, we discuss these things. We are very open, but I feel like there's so much judgment and biases to Black men being able to express themselves, and it's all over. And I think that social media has a big factor to play with that. Like when what is his name? One of the R&B artists, is it Tyrese? Tyrese, I think it is. When he came out and he was crying and discussing and talking about his stuff, they was making fun of him. There's multiple African American artists and actors that came out and talked about these things or just couldn't take it anymore. I even hear it in some of the rappers' music, in which I'm not an NBA YoungBoy fan, but my son listened to that, and I'm like, this dude, he needs to get some counseling, because I'm listening to his lyrics and he's reaching out for help in his music, and I don't think the generations are listening to what he's actually saying. I'm like, from live it to live it, of like, okay, wait. So the information is out there, the resources is, but there's a lack in regards to the Black males in the community where they're not getting the help that they need, that they're not reaching out, or maybe, again, because of the judgment and the biases, they are afraid to speak up and they're seeing what's happening. So figuring out how can we bridge that gap, meeting our people where they are safe at. I was talking to Gil earlier about what I noticed for myself, like when you go to get your hair did, or a haircut at the barbershop, or you are at the hairdresser, or you're getting your nails did, or you speaking to your pastor or your priest, or your friend or your family member, that's your safe place. You open up to them more than you do to anyone else. Figuring out how we can provide resources and educating them as well when they come in and someone is talking about, their stressors or how they feel, having them say, okay, well, look, I got information here I can provide for you to get the help you need. Or them just asking, what can I do to help you? So finding out for me is solutions and ways how we can bridge the gap in many areas, especially in the churches, having them also advocate for counseling as well. I'm all about solutions. But I do know this from experience and within my own community and in all communities that there's a big lack in regards to Black men's health. I call it for the Black males the silent but daily depression in Black males. Like they don't speak about it, don't talk about it. But some of us can notice it. Like some of us can really notice those symptoms there. So just ask that person like how they doing. Like you said, checking on them, checking on your strong friend and. Ask those questions, provide them with the help they need, maybe even holding their hand to take them to the place they need to go to, because they may say, oh yeah, I'm gonna check on them, I'm gonna check it out later on, and it never gets done.
To speak back about the statistics, Black people being number one, and you said, what was it, suicide? Or,
Yeah.
Black males
yeah.
Black males.
So
overall.
I had a statistic that said 80% of the African American community will not seek help for mental health due to them thinking that they shouldn't or they can't because of the stigma behind it. And that 80% is very high. And I just wanted to also chime in on what you said about the barbershops and hair salons. That's always been a safe place for the black community, because if you go in any black barbershop, you can feel the culture. You can go to any one of them across the nation, they're all the same. Typically if you go to an older barbershop, they're playing gospel music or R&B music. You go to the younger ones, they're playing R&B or hip hop music. Regardless, it's a culture inside the barbershop. The same with the beauty salons, and it's like you can just open up freely, you don't get judged, you go in there, have a good time, laugh, talk, everything. And people know that. That's why we have movies out there. We have, 3 barbershops, hair, beauty salon. It's movies out there basically telling you beauty shops and barbershops is a safe space for the black community. And one thing I like, I think LeBron James has a show on HBO or Showtime called The Shop, where they sit in, he has guest speakers, and it's a barbershop, and they come in and they talk about issues going on in the country, the black community. It's different topics every week, but the dynamics of the show is basically you come into the barbershop where it's a safe space and you talk about anything that you feel like talking about while you're getting a haircut. It's not like we're just sitting in a barbershop. You have a barber, you're getting your haircut, we're talking about discussions and all of that. And another thing that I will say that I have noticed on the rise, podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts that are out there, and I see a lot of people in the black community starting podcasts. I've been guest speakers on a lot of podcasts in 2020 and 2021. They're really on the rise. One of my favorite podcasts is I Am Athlete. Is former NFL players, and they talk about the same thing that we're up here talking about, but they blend it in with sports. So they get speakers to come. They always have a guest, and they talk about everything. And again, a podcast is just another space for you to have an outlet and talk about whatever it is bothering you, let it all out. Sometimes you argue, sometimes you disagree, but all in all, you're getting it out. And you're getting it out amongst people that you trust, that you love, and everyone can learn from each other that way. So the outlets that we have are growing, and I do think we're making progress, but again, it could be at a faster rate. But I am very proud of the progress that has been made so far.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with this last question here. Do you believe that black people have a reason to be afraid of the healthcare system in today's America?
You want to start?
You can start.
I would say no. I think that, I make decisions based upon informed research. I don't just go out and I know, like Jerry mentioned that after he came from the doctor, he went and bought everything that looked healthy. There's a difference between things that look a certain way and actually doing your research to figure out what is actually in this product. So I think that we all have an opportunity because information is readily available to us. You have the internet, you have social media, and I'll be careful on where you get it from social media, but you have information readily available to you in the palm of your hand most often, that you have an opportunity to do the research that you need to do to make an informed decision that's right for you. The decision that's right for you may not be right for the next person, but as an individual, you have an opportunity to make a decision that's based upon, what is good for you. So I feel as though we don't have a reason to be afraid. We just have to be able to create a space to explore opportunities to better ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. So it's up to us to encourage ourselves and actually support ourselves in that journey of discovery, in that journey of going into the unknown, because oftentimes we are afraid of the things that we just are not familiar about. So instead of doing the research, instead of, kind of doing the work that it takes to get the information that we need, we just brush it aside. And one thing I'll add to kind of tie this question to the last question, we're talking about the barbershops and the beauty salons, so on and so forth, but just bringing it down to here on campus. We don't have a barbershop or beauty salon on campus, but creating safe spaces where people feel empowered and encouraged to have these types of conversations. If they're having an issue or having a question about something they're not familiar with, instead of saying, oh, you're just crazy, or, that's foolishness, be there, listen, create that safe space and give them an environment where we feel as though we are empowering and encouraging one another so that we can reduce any types of fears that we have about these topics.
Well, as far as if we have a reason to be afraid, as of right now, I won't say we don't have a reason. But if you go back into history and look at a lot of the things that we did endure, I would understand why most have this mistrust. I would use the word mistrust with the medical industry. And so because, again, the generational cycle of what they're being taught and how a lot of us are still impacted, still today have some negative effects. I've had that before. Many of my other African-American friends also had the same effects where they was mistreated, and it could be because of their insurance, whether they had private insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, or no insurance at all. Or misdiagnosed, and then that's not being treated, that's mistreated as well. And so there is a biases there. So again, I won't use the word afraid, but most so mistrust. But like he said, being educated, going out there and get the resources and make sure that you're being more informed with the proper resources and utilizing those things, and just having us advocating to push more information about mental health so that more of us can be more educated and being able to get the treatment, the proper treatment that we need. But there's a big mistrust there, and it's still there.
And I want to add on to what Ms. Honora said, that I feel as though the mistrust is like a generational thing. And I do believe that when you do better, when you know better, you do better. Mm-hmm. So now that we are in a different times, so we are aware of what's going on, so there's no excuse of why you're doing the same thing. So, looking at, the different data and research, looking at like what you prefer, would you like a African-American doctor who better understands, what you go through, what you struggle with, and things like that. So I think it's just important to like hold yourself accountable and just know that, okay, I can't keep doing the same things that I've been doing. I can't keep thinking the same way I've been thinking. I have to do different, So.
Thanks.
I feel like a lot of people are just afraid. I think it just comes down to, in the black community, one, it's like we have a lot of unity, but we also are against a lot of things and people that maybe we shouldn't be against. So if we hear something from somebody, first thing we're gonna be like, oh nah, nope, don't trust that, nope, won't see me doing that. That's almost like an unwritten law. Anytime we don't know what it is, nope, we'll not be doing that. So it comes down to just doing your information. I mean, yeah, so just going out, getting proper information and doing, just being able to make your own judgment for something, especially about health, because at the end of the day, it's only affecting you. So the information that you find or the people that you talk to, just make sure it's somebody that you can trust, or at least talk to other people that you're close to who already have the information. Because a lot of times if somebody who we don't know, who, let's say, that isn't black, presents us with information and we're like, oh no, I don't trust it, But one of your friends heard the same thing and they listen, and then they come and tell you, now you're like, okay, well, all right, I'll check that out. It's just little things like that. Just being able to trust people. So I guess just having a certain trust for this information, being able to accept this information and take it for what it is instead of trying to judge or feel like it's wrong. Yeah.
All right, thank you. At this time, we're going to be done with our questions portion of the event. So can you please give a good round of applause to our amazing panelists, very amazing panelists. So at this time, we're going to go ahead for a Q&A from the audience. So if you guys have any questions for our panelists, we have microphones at each end, so you can go ahead and go to that if you have any questions for the panelists at this time.
So the question I have is, with COVID-19 in the black community, what are some of your thoughts on our response or the progress of understanding and understanding what's happening and our response in 2022?
So just kind of chiming on in what Jaron said, something he said, I think that the last one in regards to like us listening to others, what other people have to say. So, and also the information provided. So more, with COVID, I noticed that it was more so, hearsay. So if my neighbor told me not to go, not to go ahead and get tested, or, if, misinformation pretty much. If I was told misinformation in general by people that I feel comfortable with, I'm going to believe what was stated versus the evidence, actual facts, okay? Actual facts, I'm noticing more of that. So that, again, education and the resources are there, but for some odd reason in our community, more so if my mom, my sister, my brother, and my grandma, if they are against it or they have other information, I'm going to believe what they're saying instead of the professionals who have this information to provide to us. So maybe it's more of a lack of understanding than a lack of resources.
It's that unwritten law.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like with that, with COVID-19, all right, I'll tell you, when it first came, I wasn't getting it. Like, I was fresh out of college. I was actually still living in my apartment that I had while I was in college, and I felt invincible. Like, I was looking, and then I wasn't really doing any, I was actually staying away from the media. I feel like the news just projects too much information. So I was actually staying out of the media. I think this was early 2020, And I also thought the first report that I saw of COVID was with an NBA player. So I thought that it was started, the first person that they said had COVID was an NBA player. I remember I was at school lifting weights in front of the TV and they stopped the game and then the NBA season ended. So I actually stopped watching that player for the next 2 seasons because I thought he started COVID. But yeah, so after that, I didn't really take it serious because I'm like, oh, well, that's on the other side of the country. And then as soon as somebody in my neighborhood got COVID, I went and bought some NyQuil, some Tylenol,
Self-medication.
some vitamin C packets to pour in my water. It did not do a thing for me. And I still wasn't wearing a mask. I was like, I'm invincible. This isn't going to get me. First time my nose got stuffy, I went and put a mask on. I didn't know what was going on. But for me, and getting the vaccine, my family is older, and I have an older brother, and he's very against it. But my mom was more afraid because she's older. We have older parents, and you know, my mom went on ahead and she snuck off and got the vaccine. Her and my grandmother actually got the vaccine together, and they didn't tell me and my brother. And when my brother found out, he's light skinned. He's like your complexion. His face got almost as red as his tablecloth, and he was very mad. And him and my mama, they got into like an argument. So I was like, I'm not gonna leave my mama to do this by herself. So I went and got a vaccine just because my mom had it. I didn't know nothing about it. I don't know nothing about any of these vaccines that I need. I feel like as long as it doesn't make my arms fall off, so I don't have to stop lifting weights, it doesn't matter. So
You need to be informed.
I felt like if I'm getting flu shots, I never knew what was in the flu shot.
Yeah, I'm the same.
All those other shots that I had to get, I don't know any information about them. The doctor said get them for school. I got them. I got my little SpongeBob Band-Aid, and you know, I was good to go. My arm was sore. People don't get it because they say, oh, your arm is sore. You get any needle to your arm is going to be sore.
Be sore.
And then I actually was getting nervous. I had like some sweaty palms. They were like, sir, you have a lot of tattoos and you're worried about this needle. I was like, a tattoo needle does not go into your arm. The needle does. So that's my take on it. Don't be afraid.
Be informed.
So I actually wasn't informed myself when I got my vaccine. I was kind of peer pressured to do it. Alrighty.
Please chime in.
All right, everybody. At this time, we're going to go ahead. I have something for our panelists here. A token of our gratitude for showing out and giving us your time.
It was only one question?
Stephen Kinney.
Y'all sure y'all don't have any more questions?
So Nora Vicks. Gil Jasmine. Jaron Johnson. Yeah, man, sometimes you just got to read the room about any questions, you know? Well, okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody for showing up and giving us y'all time and coming to this panel. It's greatly appreciated. We have some refreshments outside. If you guys want to go ahead and get some of that, mingle, talk to our panelists, you know, get some more information. And Jaron Johnson, he obviously he's looking for questions. So please come up with questions for this man. So
no questions, no food. Okay.
So, speaking of like my parents.
Yeah. Speaking to the microphone, sir.
Oh, all right.
I like your hoodie.
Thank you. So, I'm just speaking on like on behalf of like my parents, so like the older generation kind of. So like they like, oh, you can't listen to this artist or the other artist because like what they talk about or like the influence. So my question is like, what do y'all feel about like not all artists are like terrible. Like some of them speak on certain aspects of like what they want to talk about, which is positive. Some of them talk about bad things, and like how does that like mostly what my parents thought, not everybody, not just a certain race talks about this side or that, but like what my parents believe was, it was mostly, you know what I mean, coming from
the black community.
Yes. So like, there's J. Cole and all that, but there's, other upcoming artists which speak on worse things, and like, how do y'all feel about, as a teenager growing up, you kind of want to like be like everybody else, hype music and stuff, but then what they're talking about.
I got you. So I think what you're trying to say is that in the black community, a lot of rappers talk about guns and drugs. Yeah, they do. But the thing with that, it's all about knowing yourself. You don't have to portray an image that you think rappers are pushing. That was never the case. And it's all about being true to yourself. Having a solid understanding of yourself. And I say that because for me, I think I'm about to sneeze. All right, I'm not. I say that because with me growing up, where I come from, it's a lot of that. It's everyone listens to that kind of music. The neighborhoods around, that's how people grew up. You have to, if that's how you grew up, you're probably gonna listen to that music regardless. Like me, growing up, I didn't grow up. I was not into any gangs or guns or anything like that. Now, not saying I wasn't around it. I have a lot of close friends. I have friends who have passed away because of gun violence. I have friends that are locked up in prison for gun violence, gang affiliated violence. But regardless of what they're doing and what I'm doing, I have to stay true to myself. My dad was an educator, so I was brought up in an education household, pushing education. Still living in the city that I live in, everything happening all around me, My high school, I remember one time my mom took my phone. She tried to give me a whooping, and I was 14 or 15. I got caught on the news. My mom saw me in the background on the news because we had a riot at my high school, and I did not know that the news was there, and they were filming. I was in the front of the riot, running with the guy that was on our campus. We were on lockdown. There was a guy on our campus. He had a gun. He was looking for somebody because they were about to fight or whatever. They were filming it, and it was live on the news. And my mom saw me in the front running and laughing, and the guy was like right beside me. But a lot of that stuff comes from the music. But me, it's just knowing who you are. You never have to. Parents are gonna think that because they don't know how their kid will go to school and be, because they're not at the school with them to watch them or show them anything. But when you're at this school, just have a clear understanding. Don't try to fit in with the in crowd. I was never one to to fit in. I always looked at myself as a leader. Like, all my friends gravitated towards me and what I was doing, and I was never pushing any negative image or trying to be a gang member or whatever. But like my friends who did that, I didn't judge them for that. They were in a gang or whatever. I tell them what's up. We keep it moving. We go eat some lunch. But
We have one more question.
Can I chime?
You got it?
I want to chime in on that real quick. Okay, so in regards to music, music can be poetry and also therapeutic. I think, like he said, knowing your true self, but also like where you are at mentally in regards to it. When I was younger, I coped with music. Okay, it helped me to get through my most toughest times. So like I said about NBA Youngboy, like in his music, he talks about his own mental health and where he's at and what he's seeing and how it's affecting him. He's actually reaching out for help. So I think determining not only knowing yourself, but knowing where you're at mentally to determine if you can listen to that kind of music. Because some music can trigger some thoughts, can trigger some other thoughts or suppressing memories that can affect you not only mentally, but physically and overall. So again, just knowing as well where you're at mentally. And if you are having any, other issues in regards to that, there is a counseling center here on campus, and you can come get free services from us to be able to talk to us about those things. So there's many ways that you can cope, but I know a lot of students utilize music as their coping mechanisms.
Our counseling center is a great resource. We have one more question here from Brogan. He writes, or he asks, I saw a friend share a post about how Will Smith and Kanye West had a mental breakdown or talked about mental health on social media. Talked about mental health, and social media made fun of them. Mm-hmm. So how big of a role does social media has in its play with mental health in Black men? And what can we do as social media users to help? That's a question from Brogan.
I kind of dibbled on that a little bit in regards to Tyrese when he had a mental breakdown, and as well as other Black males, and how just in general society, the expectations that are put on them as how they have to be strong. So I think it's like a facade. Social media, a lot of us have this facade of who we are on here. So the minute that we put something out as vulnerable and them reaching out for help, everyone turns that other cheek. So we all marching and advocating mental health, but the minute somebody reaches out and put themselves out on social media, which you have to think about this too. When you do this, you have to expect some backlash from other people. So mentally, you shouldn't even do that because you're not even in the right place to do that. Even though that's their way of reaching out for help, you're not in the right place mentally to put that out there. Now, you may have some people that may reach out and help and come out and help you, but you have the other side that's going to, criticize you, and that is going to have their judgment, and that bias is there. I don't think we have control over social media ourselves. There's the makers over it. They have more say-so of what's being shared and versus what's not. And so when stuff like that happens, they should be able to be the ones, to be held responsible in controlling the things that are put out there.
What I'll add to that is, I'll slightly disagree with something Nora said when she said that we don't have control over social media. We have control over what we like and what we repost. Yeah. And when you see someone being vulnerable, opening themselves up and trying to tell you that I'm suffering with this, you have the opportunity, even people that you don't know, to offer encouragement and support. Mm-hmm. So we control social media through our likes and our reposts and retweets, whatever you call it, to ensure that we are a community where we're going to embrace and support one another no matter what's going on. I think another thing that we have to look at is when you have these celebrities that are sharing their stories with you, too often we put individuals on pedestals that they're untouchable because we see the lavish lifestyles they live on social media. Mm-hmm. But it's when they share those vulnerabilities, it should let you know, and all of us know, that they're humans just like us. Mm-hmm. And if they're going through something, we can go through that as well. So again, help normalize the conversation around I'm not in this alone, that this actually happens no matter what your socioeconomic status is, that it can happen to you as well. So when we get to a place where we're understanding and creating those safe spaces for people to feel encouraged to be vulnerable and open, I think it helps us grow individually and collectively as a community, because again, we're not going through this battle by ourselves, but more importantly, that we understand that people are just being themselves and they feel comfortable enough to share with it. Now, when people are criticizing, we can't control that. However, we can dispel it by making sure that for every one person that criticizes, we get enough people to go back and support that individual and help them through the healing process.
Do we have any other questions for our panelists? There we go. Good. Only took one.
Hi. So, due to social media and what they just said, why do you think people don't take something like this as seriously as they should? Like they're shaming this person, or like I just said, they're not taking it seriously.
I think that a lot of people, so the thing with social media, you can always go viral for something. So let's use Twitter for example, because a lot of the stuff happens on Twitter. That's where memes get created, all that. Like where she was talking about Tyrese, there's a meme of him falling out of a chair crying on the floor, and people use that meme like it's actually one of the top used memes, and it's been used so much that I've even used it before. And you know, the thing with social media, people just want to have a reason to make somebody. They use other people's problems to make themselves or everyone else laugh. And I think that's how Twitter operates. I think Twitter is like the most harsh app because there's no filter on Twitter, you know. They will just, as soon as you post something, they're gonna just start making jokes instantly. Like as soon as you post, regardless of who you are, anybody, or you put something out there that is against the norm, or you're disagreeing with what the norm is or anything, it's gonna be bad. But that's social media for you. That's why I feel like people should stay away from social media, but it has such an impact now. Like people are so locked into social media that's their outlet when it shouldn't be. But you know, I think you should only post like certain things that shouldn't be that personal, because if you know that when you post something personal, it's gonna get taken out of context. They're not gonna take it seriously. They're gonna make a joke about it. Just don't even post it. But that's typically why that stuff happens.
And I absolutely agree that if you can get enough people to support you, like, I think that's awesome.
All right, good afternoon. It's kind of a complex question because we kind of have this issue in the black community where if you're extremely intelligent, if you're achieving high goals, if you speak in an intellectual manner, if you're not into rap or hip hop or whatever the case may be, you are not portrayed as black. If you're not thugged out or whatever the case may be, you are not portrayed as black. And I know one of the panelists personally because I've known them since I was 9 years old. Yo, Jasmine. So how if you knew people who dealt with that struggle, or are you had those struggles yourself? What can you say? How did you deal with it, and what advice can you give any of us to deal with that, to overcome that?
I'll start there. I think that my advice would be to know yourself. do not allow other people's opinions of you validate who you are and what your existence is. Because no one can tell you how black or what your existence is in the black community. How you identify is how you identify, and you don't need validation from anyone else. So know thyself and know that you are worthy to walk in whatever community you want to walk in. That will be the advice to you. Now, I'm going to speak from a personal standpoint because I recently had an encounter, I won't say a conversation, an encounter with someone about 2 weeks ago, where it's like, well, you know, you're at Nichols and you're supposed to be down for the cause and this, that, and the other, and you're nothing but a sellout because, you know, like that. And I'm like, really? It's because I know who I am, I know what I do, and I know the work that I do each and every day. I don't have to justify anything that I do to someone that does not know what's going on behind the scenes. So know yourself, know your worth, know your value, and know that you don't have to be accountable for anyone but yourself. Just consider, you know, continue to uplift yourself when no one else will. That's the advice I give to you.
Yeah, and also to add to that, I would say it really comes down to really owning every fiber of your being, like just being in touch with who you are and loving yourself so much to where it doesn't really matter what no one else has to say. Because if you own who you are, own, you know, where you're going in life, and not really caring about like what you've gone through, but just knowing where you're heading to, then that's all that matters. You know, just own that, be that, and accept everything about yourself, even the stuff that you don't like. Accept it all, 'cause that's the only way you can really move forward. So that's what I say.
Hello, I'm a little nervous to ask this first. My heart's pumping so fast. So where I'm from is Thibodaux, Louisiana. I went to this public high school, but there's another private school here. But this private high school was just like straight up white. Like, I'm not saying there were no, you know, African American workers there. There were some, but not a lot. And I'm thinking, like, why is it just a lot of white? Like, it should be more diverse. Like, when I see other private schools in other parishes, there's more diverse. So I'm wondering, like, does diversity matter, like, not just schools, but everywhere in general?
So they look to the diversity person on campus to answer the question. Absolutely, diversity matters. And I would say that diversity, I think the first point is understanding what is diversity. You know, too often we take diversity and we hear diversity and inclusion, we're thinking black and white, male and female. There's so many facets of an individual that creates diversity in a space. I'm not gonna say at the workplace, but in the space. So going back to the young man with the LSU sweatshirt on that asked the question, you have to know who you are, who you represent, and understanding that you are uniquely created to be you. There will not be another person just like you. My mother is a twin, and biologically it says that they're the same. They are complete opposites, but so you represent diversity in so many facets besides race and gender. When we go into a space of other individuals, everyone in there can be in the minority just like everyone can be in the majority, just based upon how you dissect the room. So diversity adds levels of perspective to the conversation that may not be available if we omit certain individuals, certain characteristics from the room. So when you think about perspectives, we talk about the evolution and how we just evolve as a society. Well, in order for us to continue to evolve in a positive way, we have to have every perspective represented. And when we don't have a perspective that may be physically there, someone is thinking from that perspective to be that representative of that person. So diversity matters because it helps encourage us all, but it also helps support each and every one of us because, again, in some areas, I may be the majority, since like I may be the minority, so we all can be on both sides of the equation, and diversity helps us be comfortable no matter where we are because we all feel supported and welcome in that space.
You're my favorite panelist out of all of them. Just to let you know, man.
Okay. All right, do we have any other questions for our panelists? Okay, we have no other questions.
No, we have a question in the front.
We do? Okay.
Hello? Okay. Speaking on how you guys discuss mistrust in the healthcare system, how can people of other demographics really get rid of the mistrust, the misinformation that people feel in the Black community?
I think that's more so within us, you know, because in the healthcare community, all you can do is put the information out there. It's on us to trust it, you know. So I think that's more so changing our thought process, and then, you know, being able to open up that trust between healthcare workers and the Black community, because they're already, it's like a push-pull thing, you know. So going from that, I feel like it's just a trust factor.
I feel like it's a combination of things. So the information, like you said, the mistrust, it partially can be on us, but it should be, again, bridging that gap. So we have to meet in the middle somewhere and be able to have those conversations and ask those questions. So if we are uncomfortable with this doctor or we are unsure, we do need to be able to advocate for ourselves and ask certain questions. But sometimes I feel like the medical industry should be able to do the same as well. So I don't think it's 100% on us. I believe it's a combination of both because of the history. So I know the history is there and we should be able to progress and move forward, but because of that, that stigma is like that. The stigma is the major barrier that's there. So once we have that combination, once we have that conversation, and we discuss more and find ways to bridge that gap, I think that it will be less mistrust.
And I would say if you are a representative of another community and you're trying to help bridge that gap, always be readily available to be an ally and a supporter to make sure that you are a resource that individuals can go to.
So my other question is that, so I was raised in a place where it's like just variety of people. I came from Puerto Rico. I'm from Franklin. There's basically two of everything. So basically, I had a friend, his family worked at the rec where we called it the black rec. They had the white rec and the black rec. So recently I went back home over the winter break and we just played basketball. I play basketball with anybody. I mean, whoever, it's a sport. Different people love sports or whatever. So I went there and this one time in the many years I've been there, I had they didn't accept me there, and I was like, I've hooped with these people this whole time. It was a different group of people. Like as I grew older, I went to college. These were like younger kids, and so my question is, why do some people are just not as approachable? Like I try to get along with everybody, but some people just like, you know, they're sketchy. Like they just don't want you to hang around with them. Like I'm just friendly and everything, but like that, some people just, I don't know if it's like, as he was, one of y'all was saying, the oral tradition, or like some people just do not want just to be around. That's, I don't know, like why some people just don't feel, aren't as approachable. Like they don't want to hang around with just different races or different people.
I think that one thing that I disagree with the younger generation, they grew up in the social media era, and a lot of the music has changed over times. Not saying that is the reason why, but it's a lot of different factors as to why the younger generation, I said the same thing, that the younger generation, they're a little bit over the edge, you know. I don't know, the generations change over time, but the younger generation, I do feel, is a little more aggressive towards people, and I just feel like they're easily influenced because there's so much influence out there, you know, that a lot of times when most people up here were growing up, the social media era wasn't here, or it was just starting. Like social media didn't start until I started high school, or I was like a sophomore in high school or something. So, I mean, I don't know. I just think that's just a part of it. I know that's not the full reason. That's just a part of it. A lot of times people they get with their friends and, you know, they see an outsider or someone that isn't like them, and, you know, they choose to act how they act, which it shouldn't be the case, but.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, if anyone has a question. All right, that's good. I wanted you guys to give a hands up for our panelists for giving us their time. Thank you. All right, y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and conclude this event and ask you all to go out into the lobby. I want to thank you all for being here with us.